All right, you guys, it is Mastermind Mania Day. That's what my Thursdays are all about, back-to-back masterminds. So we are going to get this one started. Welcome to our Momentum Mastermind. So many of you guys are repeat masterminders in this group. For those of you who are new to this group, I'm just going to lay it out very quickly. Number one, these are recorded. We typically come with a topic. We start with about 10 to 15 minutes of an interview with a master on the topic. We are then going to do things a little differently today. Instead of jumping right into tactical exercises, we are going to open up the room because we are talking about challenges and opportunities. So as we're going through the beginning part of this, we want you guys to start thinking about your biggest challenge, your biggest opportunity, the biggest rock in your shoe, because we have an incredible master on the line to kind of talk to us about what challenges and opportunities look like in today's market. Now, the best way masterminds work is if we get to interact with real live people. So although we love looking at little black boxes with your names on it, if you are able, please turn on your camera. And by able, I mean dressed appropriately. If not, please keep your camera off. But we're going to give you guys a minute to get those cameras on so we can start interacting, and we are going to have a ton of fun. All right, Jesse, you ready to rock and roll and get into this thing?
Let's do it.
2021, challenges and opportunities. So even for our seasoned agents, it is totally safe to say that this is an incredibly unique market that we have never, ever seen before. Tell us about how you're feeling about today's market. And if you're approaching it with a different mindset than you have in previous markets of the moment.
Yeah, 100%. So, it's interesting. I believe that your mindset and the activities you do has to change based on the market of today, right? So what we find is that the market is ever shifting. It's always changing and fluctuating. And it's something you kind of just have to get used to it. Sometimes it's more drastic than others, right? And you have to really pay attention to what others are doing to shift. And it depends on who you are, right? And your strengths and what your one thing is and what you focus on. But I'm not, when everything happened with COVID, of course, I think we all took a couple of weeks ago, oh my gosh, what's going on, right? And what do we do and how do we shift and what does this look like? Do we, we're going to be in this forever. And I think you have to look at it and say, okay, what's the one thing that I know that is going to propel my business? And again, it's different for everyone. And have the attitude a positive attitude that you're going to be able to get through this and do it. You just need to maybe do it a little bit differently or a little more than you had done before.
I love that. So positive attitude, pay attention to what's going on out there, and choose the one thing. So I'm gonna dig a little deeper into that. When you say pay attention to what's going out there, what are the tools, resources, people? How would somebody who is just launching a business or looking to reignite their business going to really dig in and make sure that they're getting accurate information? Because by that, you guys, I say this a lot, right? Perception is reality, but just because it's your reality doesn't actually make it real. So Jesse, how do we go about navigating the noise when we're paying attention to the right things?
Yeah, for me, it was really a couple of things, and then that's it. It was focusing on, Chris's state of the industry, really understanding things would get ratcheted up and would be like, oh my gosh, the media is saying this and this is saying this. And then Chris would break it down with facts and data, right? So if you're not joining those calls, you should be listening to other leaders that are calm, collective, that are giving you the data. The second piece of that is your database. You should be talking to everyone in your database, see how they're feeling, kind of understand where they're at and their comfort level, regardless if we're in a pandemic or not. And I would say those two things, if you focus just on those two things and you shut off everything else, you can really just kind of focus and hone in on your world and not everyone else's world. And I think that's, well, your database's world, the local and national real estate market through Chris's updates. And then you're able to kind of just tune out those other things that basically are distractions in your day.
There's so many reasons. You guys, this is why he's the master. I'm going to repeat what he said. It's go out and get the facts, right? From your trusted sources, right? People who are analyzing the market. You don't have to be the master of analyzation. You have great resources of people who take that and whittle it down to the important things. But the other piece of that is in order to be a great consultant and a fiduciary, right? We have to find out where our people are at and meet them where they are and help them walk the journey, right? Because that's the education piece, that's the consultation piece of that. If we just start throwing facts at them and they're not ready, then we haven't helped them accomplish their ultimate goal. Is that safe to say, Jesse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the third part of that is really surrounding yourself in an environment that supports your success, right? Being in the right market center, right office, right company, network that supports your success and helps you, encourage you. And that goes for like agents in your market center, right? So, I mean, we all have great agents in our market center, but you want to be talking to those that are positive and that are active, not sitting on the couch complaining about what's going on. They're actually focused on their one thing and they're moving this thing forward. So if you're talking to just kind of the naysayers about what's going on in the world and the market, then that's going to be your environment. That's going to be your culture.
Right. And that's going to show up in your conversations with your clients, right? Like, that's going to spill over. Okay, Jesse, now you've had years and years and years of incredible success. So today we're going to talk a little bit about your challenges, right? Your challenges navigating this market. So break it down for us. What are your 2 to 3 biggest challenges that you're facing in this market? A second piece to that, how are you mentally preparing yourself to guide yourself, your team, and your clients through it? So we want to hear the rocks in your shoe.
Sure. Yeah, the biggest challenge in my day, and I know it's every one of my team members as well, is letting the whirlwind of the day and the other things that go on get in the way of your one thing. And so that should be a constant check-in. It should be a check-in every day. You should have it written above your computer monitor what your one thing is. And Gary Keller says in the Shift book, until your one thing is complete, everything else is a distraction. Right? So everything else doesn't matter. Complete that one thing. And I'm not the best at it. I mean, it's a constant check-in and reminder. And how do you know what your one thing is? Sometimes people struggle with that. It's really, and what are those tasks that help you hit your one thing? So that's a discovery process that you can do through a coach or through Leslie or anyone in Jake, any one of your team leaders can help you with a GPS to understand what are the activities that's going to help you hit your goal, and really focusing on those activities. So, and when it gets overwhelming, understanding what that minimum is that you have to complete before you can do anything else, and just get that done. It may be painful, it may be hard, your phone might be blowing up, but that's our biggest challenge. It always is. And just staying focused to that, and know that it's a challenge for yourself. I think that's the big thing. Know that you struggle with that, and maybe not everyone does, but I think the majority of people would rather go show a house, which is very important, or go tour homes, or be out there doing different things, versus calling your database or doing some of those hard phone calls or conversations. So to me, that's number one.
Awesome. And I put it in the box. So for those of you who are new to the acronyms of Kellerisms, a GPS is goals, priorities, and strategies. So that is one of the many tools that we use in business planning and helping focus. And Jesse, I want to say there's another phrase that we use a lot is this conversation of we never want to compare our insides to people's outsides, right? So for where you said you struggle with it, your team members struggle with it. The truth is, guys, we all struggle with staying focused and on our one thing. So if you're looking out in the world and going, gosh, they really seem like they have it together, make sure that you understand that those people didn't necessarily just arrive at where they're at. It has been a journey for them to learn, and you're just not privy to maybe the moments where they're feeling the overwhelm or doing those resets. So give yourself a break, get your GPS in place, and stay focused.
Yeah, can I share a simple tip? Those of us that use our phones to schedule in our calendar, you may or may not know that you can create an additional calendar, right? So in that, and then you can toggle between different calendars, kind of like Bold, where they say, hey, highlight, the different activities based on your priority. So you can create another calendar that's a different color, and then you can toggle between and turn different calendars off. So if you actually create a calendar that you're not sharing with anyone else, that is for your 20% or your one thing, the activities that are going to help you hit your goal, and you put those in only that one calendar, and then you can toggle that other crap, excuse my language, or the whirlwind stuff that gets in the way, right? And you turn that off and you can just focus on, hey, I need to do this. And you've got your time blocks. So that's been a helpful tool for me that I've done previously and my team members. So just a little tip there.
I love that. And I do love a color-coded calendar, right, TLs? Everything's color-coded. It's how we stay focused on the most important things easily without having to spend any mental energy on sorting through the day. Okay, so that was challenge number one, staying focused on our top 20% activities, staying focused on our one thing. What would be another challenge you're facing today?
For myself, it's in our team, it's really helping our database with their mindset of what the market is and helping them understand and coaching them to how they can accomplish their goals. A lot of people feel like they just can't do anything right now, and they need a plan, a direction, and they need you to advise them and be their trusted advisor. So I would say that I didn't realize it would be as big of a challenge, but some people just can't wrap their head around it. And so coming up with kind of a menu of options where people can kind of see and understand, and you're meeting with them and coaching them, that's been a challenge, but it's also a crazy, amazing opportunity.
I love that. So let's go a little deeper, right? Because I know people are wondering, okay, we have clients out there that are afraid to put their house on the market because there's nothing to buy. We have buyers that have buyer fatigue after losing multiple offers. Jesse, how do you strategically go about counseling and advising them? What does that look like in your world, and how do you set those conversations up?
It's a lot of communication up front, right? So I think often we get into a relationship, we're excited, and we meet with them, and then we if it's a listing, we provide comparables and we talk about what we're going to do for marketing. And if it's a buyer, we talk about the market briefly. But I think it's one of the realtor that has just recently retired, one of the best realtors in Washington County, I believe, Judy Close, said the best agents in our market or any market are those that can master the expectations of their clients before they're ready to go. So
okay, say that again. One more time.
The best realtors in any market are those that can master the expectations of their clients before they're ready to be active in the market, which is like, how do you do that, right? It's a lot of upfront talk. It's talking to them way before they're even ready. So if you got a seller, and this is a little different, that I do this a little different than most agents. Most agents will have a seller that's interested in selling in 2 to 5 years, and they'll just say, okay, we'll put you on a drip plan. We'll connect with you every 6 months, and eventually you'll be ready to go. Well, a lot can happen in 2 to 5 years. And the minute someone starts talking about selling their home, guess what? They start looking at prices. And a lot of times, if it's a 2-year plan, you call them back, 18 months, and they say, oh, and you say, hey, we're ready to go. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we've sold our house. Our cousin got their license. And so they start thinking about it. They say they're far out, but they're usually, you can cut that time in half, if not more. What we've found is we meet with them initially right away, just a consultation, just check out their house. If they're a buyer, we have a in-depth conversation with them about what their goals are a year or two out. If you've got no business right now, like connecting with people face to face is your business. Like that's what you should be doing. So it's not going to hurt you at all. It's just going to create future business. National Association of Realtors says that I think it's 85% of all home sellers will list with the first agent they meet. It doesn't mean you have to be good. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know what you're doing. You just need to be the first person, right? So, and I believe, I don't know what the stat is for buyers, but if you take the time well before they're ready, you're going to end up having success down the road. And most of us are in it for the long run, right? Of course, we need business now. And in my opinion, that's what open houses are for, right? The now business and then the future business. But if you're looking at it for the long run, I would say that when you're connecting to your database, when you're talking to them, you're talking about what are your future plans, what are your dreams, in purchasing. If you were to think about what your dream home would be someday, what would that look like to you? Where can you see yourself being in 2 to 5 years? Have them start kind of mentally working through that process of that move. And what it does, it encourages them to move a little quicker. I think that's the biggest opportunity for us in our business, is really having those kind of conversations and building those relationships, because it also shows them that you care.
You just hit it, right? We were going to transition to opportunities. You just said a lot. You guys, I am like, if you're ferociously taking notes on this, so I'm going to bring out a little nuggets. Number one, timeline, Jesse talked about, right? What is the metric? You guys, mentally, emotionally, and in human speaking, if somebody gives you a timeline, you need to cut it in half. If they say 6 months, you better be in contact with them at 3 months or earlier. If they say I'm a month out, you better contact them next week, right? Like that is typically what happens, because it becomes part of their reticular activator, and they are in search mode or change mode the moment they tell you, right? So it was great. Number two, be first. There you go. Number one strategy, just be first. And I love this. If you missed it, if you do not currently have business, then getting face to face is your business. That's good. Jesse, did I miss anything there?
Yeah, no. When you are first and you sit down with them, and I know I said you don't have to be good at what you do, but all of you guys are perfecting what you do. I know that there's a lot of newer agents here, but each time you go on an appointment, you get better. And as you have some sort of presentation that you can present to them, even if they say they're 2 years out, what happens is sometimes they look back and they look at each other and they're like, honey, Jesse says it's a good time to put it on the market. Why are we waiting? Why don't we do this now? Right. And so that 2 years all of a sudden becomes a listing sometimes. And talking about, we talk about challenges, talking about the reality of the market is important early. For sellers, it's, hey, in order to be competitive in this market, you may have to sell your home and move into temporary housing for 6 months. Rent it, do a 6 month or a month, so that you're competitive. Or if you can't purchase without selling, having those conversations early, they're going to say no right away. But if they're 2 years out, what do you have to lose, right? And they have all the information. Guess what usually happens? Hey, we processed this. We talked about it. We're going to go ahead and do that. We figured it out. And if you don't bring that up early and have those hard conversations, then you're just not going to get the business. They're going to be fumbling around trying to figure out what they're going to do until you tell them or someone else does.
Jesse, there's a phrase that I've always used with all of my clients and throughout my career, and I'm going to give it to you guys today. It's a great script. If you're afraid to deliver, there's some challenging news out there in the market, right? This is the script I always use before I deliver news that may be concerning, fearful, or just honest. And this is it. I'd rather be honest with you now than disappoint you later. Right? That sets you up to have a conversation about low inventory, about their options to move from one house to another, whether it's transitional housing, right? We don't do our client services by protecting them from the reality, because like Jesse said, they're going to get it somewhere else. So be the first person to help advise them and give them information that they need to hear. Katya, you've heard it a lot, right? I'd rather be honest with you now than disappoint you later. Jesse, why don't we do this? It is 9:22. I've got some hands raised. You guys, we want to field as many of your questions as possible. So a couple of things, you can raise your hand, we'll call on you. We're going to get through as many. You can drop it in the chat box. We'll pull it up if you don't have audio, but let's start with Kay Reed. What questions do you have, or what challenges do we want to tackle?
Okay, so what I'm seeing is open houses are kind of very limited in our area because the homes don't stay on the market long enough. So what's another way with the communities opening up to get in front of people, to get in front of buyers?
Great question. First off, let's talk about open houses a little bit. There's not a lot of open houses. Is that what you said?
Yes, yeah, they just don't stay on the market long enough to schedule an open house.
Okay. Yeah, so we typically, for newer agents, it's nice to know that we typically go on the market on a Thursday, and we don't look at offers until Monday. So it creates an opportunity for 2 open houses. So first off, I would maybe change things around if you're the listing agent to make sure you have the opportunity to do that. And then I mentioned earlier, open houses can be good for that, instant gratification, buyers that are actively searching, but it's also a long-term game as well, because you're actually being interviewed by anyone that can see your sign in that neighborhood, right? So even if you're an open house agent, there's a process that we use typically, not all the time, but if you really want to try to get long-term business in that neighborhood, then what I would be doing is I would door knock the closest 25 homes, the people that can see right before your open house, and invite them, okay? And they've seen your face. Maybe they come to the open house, maybe they don't. When it goes pending, you door knock that again. You talk to them and say, we had success, we had multiple offers. When it closes, you go back again and tell them it closed. This is the price we were able to get. These are how many buyers that missed out on the opportunity. Who do you know in the neighborhood that is most likely to sell, that we can help these buyers get into a home, right? And then they may say nothing. You may not get business now, but what you've showed them is a track record of success. I know that doesn't completely answer your question, but you mentioned open houses, and I think that it depends. It's the mindset around it. If we have few listings, like we didn't have a ton of listings this year, but everyone were very intentional. We capitalized on every opportunity with that. Some people say, hey, we didn't have a successful open house because we had 3 people in or nobody came. When nobody comes, we still have a successful open house.
I
Because
like
we've
the
done
ideas
this.
for the follow-up after the open house too, after it's gone pending and once it's sold. That neighborhood needs to know what their neighborhood is doing. So that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, they need to know what the neighborhood's doing. They need to know that you are the one that did it and that you've created that success. So they're going to remember you, right? You've given them the cards, you follow up. Now you've added, if you've had good conversation, now you add them to your database and they're receiving things from you. You're communicating with them. As far as other ways to get buyers, really, we're just instant buyers ready to go. We're just focusing on our database, right? It's building the pipeline. So I started in 05 when the market was crazy, amazing. It was easy to do anything, sell houses, list houses, buy houses. And then the market crashed and it was super hard to work with a seller, right? And there was agents in our office. I mean, you think this is crazy, but there's agents in our office giving away listings, not even wanting referral fees, just saying you can have it, because they were most likely short sales or whatever it might be. At that time, I shifted with the market. I was carrying about 30 short sales at one time. I had a short sale negotiator that was my leverage, that was negotiating, and that I'd pay 1%, and then I'd have 2.5% on the listing side. And I started collecting listings, collecting them, just as many as I could get, right? And then what happened? The market shifted and they all sold. And we had a crazy, amazing year. Some of them I had to hold for 3 years. That's crazy, right? So flip that around now. Find as many buyers as you can now. Put them in their pipeline. Create a plan to nurture them. Be real with them. Coach them. Be a part of their lives. And build that pipeline so big, because what's going to happen? It's going to shift, right? Yep. So I think that's the deal with the buyers right now.
You know what, Jesse, you just said something that I feel like we need to scream from the rooftops. And it just takes me back. I was also one of those short sales specialists. And what we found is that those realtors that were versed in helping clients through the hardest of times, right? Helping them navigate the most difficult piece of their life, made clients for life, right? That they would never dream to go somewhere else. So think about that, like you said, in your buyer pool right now. If you can be the one to help them accomplish this very difficult, challenging situation, you've built a client for life, right? The short sales of 2012 became the sales of 2015, 18, 20, and 21, and into the future.
Yeah, perfect examples, Leslie. That's dead on. I helped a client with a $150,000 short sale in Woodburn, and it took 3 years. I don't service Woodburn, but he was someone that I was really close to, and I wanted to take care of him. It took 3 years. I have closed 10 referrals from that client since then.
There you go.
Right.
Jesse,
So
we're gonna blaze through a couple more questions because they're dropping them in. We have a question that came in from the coast. Very difficult to explain to clients that properties here fly off the market. And how do we deal with clients that are choosing to only communicate by email? So that is from Lucette at the coast. So how do you deal with clients that only want to do email and text, and we have important information to impart?
It's a good one. It's important that they see your face sooner than later. So if, we have that happen all the time with leads, people that don't necessarily know us that come in. The first thing you should be doing is obviously calling them, texting them, communicate like how they want to communicate, but they need to see your face. So you should do a selfie video and send it to them. Hey, I just want to put a face to the name. We've been texting, we've been talking. Wanted to make sure that you're taken care of. If they don't see your face, then you're just like everyone else they're reaching out to. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's continue to communicate like how they want, but be different than everyone else.
I love that. And I would mimic exactly what Jesse said, right? It's important that we communicate with clients in the method in which they prefer to be communicated with. That actually draws them closer to us. However, there is a time and place to say, hey, can we jump on a quick call? Or hey, can we do a quick meeting to reset those expectations? Because there's so much that is lost in text message and email. So it doesn't need to be your forever communication. It just needs to probably transition at some point to human, belly to belly, eyeball to eyeball.
Another thing I'll add to that is, is really driving home the importance of connecting early. If you're a buyer in this market, you're going to miss out on opportunities. So really just saying, hey, we want to make sure we talk to, we meet or we talk over the phone with every buyer that we engage with in this market. Otherwise, we will miss opportunities. So that's part of our process. So that's our next step. So let's go ahead and schedule something. What works for you? What can we put on the calendar?
I love that. Okay, we've got lots of back and forth and using TMOs. How are you using TMOs and market stats to help you tell the story right now, Jesse?
TMOs have been a little tricky depending on the property. So I will pull a TMO and look to see if it helps kind of the case of where it should be priced. Ultimately, I'm looking at MLS stats, but right now, because of all the craziness right now, it's been hard to use some of the old data. So you really need to, I think it's important to look at the TMO to understand what's happened historically in the last month or the last week, or however, if you're looking at the MLS or the TMO, however it's structured. But really, I think our market is now neighborhood specific. Most of the time it's crazy. But at the same time, you could have a pocket that's not, or is doing better than others. So really, TMO is important, but also calling the listing agents around the properties that you're looking at, that your buyer's interested in, or you're listing, and talking to them to understand clearly what happened. Why were you on the market for 10 days? What happened there? I see you were market on for 3 days, so kind of really understanding that hyper local market around that area your buyer's looking or your seller is selling.
I love that. And once again, to explain acronyms for those who are not familiar, TMO is Total Market Overview. It is a local glimpse of an area such as Beaverton, Oregon. That's going to tell you in every single price point what the inventory looks like, the pendings, days on market, percentage of sale price that your market center will provide to you on a monthly basis. So that is an additional tool or resource that you have in addition to what your MLS stats are providing. And then of course, going even more hyper local would be your CMA for your local area. But just what Jesse really said there, you guys, is remember that the ball has shifted in market analytics. We can no longer be using data that is, 3 months and sometimes 2 months or sometimes even 1 month old. We really need to make sure that we're feeding our clients the most current, accurate, updated information, which would play into that making the call arounds of what's actually happening with the homes that are listed right now. Anything else you would add to that, Jesse?
No, that's good.
Okay, awesome, you guys. I think we covered all of the questions in chat. Anybody have a question that they want to unmute and ask? You can raise your hand, once again, drop it in chat, or unmute yourself and just jump into the conversation.
Leslie, I was just going to mention, Haley and I use open houses a lot in our business. So I love that what he was talking about open houses. And we along our path had to redefine what a successful open house meant, because like we would have open houses with a lot of people through it and we captured no one's information. That to me is not a successful open house. As an agent, I captured no one's information. So we started defining, literally every open house, our goal was to get so many people put into our database. So if we had 5 people through and we captured even 3 leads whose names, numbers, and emails got in the database, that was successful. Versus the one where we had 20 people through who came with agents mostly, and we got no one's information. So that was just something that helped us, because we would sit in those slow ones sometimes and get frustrated, but then we would leave with a new client. So it was weird.
I love that. Defining what a successful open house is. And sometimes people are like, oh, I'm going to go do an open house and I'm going to get 5 leads, right? Jake's talking about just getting 3 people, 5 people in his database, right? So like that's a successful, that at a minimum, that's what they want. And how are you going to do that? You're going to be able to, you need to track who's in there. Let's talk about, I know we've got some newer agents. That just brings up another point, is I love Jake's comment there. And let's talk about like, how do you get open houses? How do you continue to get those opportunities? Because I know a lot of us don't have listings, and there's agents in our market center that have tons of agents to pull from. So that's actually how I hired Daphne on my team. Daphne Tappert, amazing agent. So she came and basically wowed me through the open house. And anyone that knows Daphne, you know that that's her character, right? But it needs to be your character if you want opportunities for open houses. So someone's going to give you a chance, because you're going to reach out and ask them for an opportunity. They may not have one this week, but you reached out and you followed up, right? And then when they need someone, they're going to reach out to you. And so I think that that's where some people don't have a plan. Just like what Jake's saying, you have a plan, you have an expectation of what you're going to get with an open house as far as leads goes, or having a successful open house. But you need to have a plan on how you're going to represent that property, so that listing agent is wowed and they call only you to come back to hold that open house. So let's talk about that. Some of the things that Daphne did, and then we created a process for, and we have an expectation for anyone that comes and holds our open house, is everyone that comes through registers, right? They register. You just say, hey, it's a seller's requirement that you come in and you register. We need to know who's been in the home, right? And we would like feedback. So we have individual clipboards that we hand out to people. And then as they go, there's small ones that we got on Amazon. As they go through, they're filling it out and they hand it when they're done. We want to know how many groups, not individual people, how many groups came in the home. Is there any interest, right? Was there anyone that talked about writing an offer? Are they represented by an agent? And if they are represented by an agent, who is that agent? So that as a listing agent, we can call and say, hey, your client was in our open house. You might want to follow up with them, right? And that information, all of that information, plus whatever feedback you're able to get, needs to come no less than 5 minutes after you leave that house, right? Because guess what's happening 1 minute after? The seller's calling and saying, hey, did you sell the house in the open, right? And of course, we're setting expectations that you may not hear from us until 30 minutes after, but we want that feedback beforehand. And sometimes there's questions. We want to be able to reach out to you and get you. So show up early, make sure that you block 10 minutes early, and you're 15 minutes to half an hour after that you've blocked time just in case, and build that professionalism. Tell the agents how you're going to handle it. Build a menu of like, hey, these are the things that we're going to provide by hosting your open house. And I also want to know, did you get leads? And I'm going to be super excited. Like, that's amazing. How are you following up with those? Like, I'm going to coach you. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to, like, that's important to me, so that because that might be a buyer for our listing, and it's business for you. So that's one huge opportunity that could turn into, for Daphne, it was like, I want her on our team, and she's been super successful.
Can I just give you a hallelujah and an amen, brother, on that?
This listing agent here.
from listing agent, right? And as someone who was a mentor for Daphne before she joined your team, and how impressive she is and how she door knocks around the neighborhood to let people know about an open house and all of the things that you've just said, you're absolutely 100% right that if we see someone who's been really exceptional at opens, why would you use anyone else? Because they are representing you. Yeah, all of it. Big amen, Brian.
Jesse and Aubrey, the great feat. I want to go because I want to go. Let's take a step back, right? Like you just laid out an ideal situation or an opportunity to secure yourself as the open house agent of choice for a listing agent. But take us back one step further. How do they approach you as a mega agent to even get the first opportunity? What does that conversation look like?
Daphne did cookies.
Yep. She did cookies and a personal note, and basically said what she will be providing and how she'll do it. And I actually got calls from agents that walk through with their clients and said, holy cow, that agent on your team, Daphne, she wasn't on our team, is incredible. Like she was going above and beyond, making sure we had all the questions answered, walking us through, like it was incredible. She was representing the property for our sellers in the best way possible. And she asked about, hey, can I make flyers? You can make them for me? How does that look? What does that look like? That's important to listing agents too. You know, the opposite of that is no communication, no feedback. And then the agent comes in and spreads all their stuff, because we've had this happen, spreads all their stuff all over the counter, which I don't mind you promoting yourself in our open house. But it needs to say listed by Jesse Dill in the property group. Seller walks in to an open house. There was nothing about what we were doing, and say, well, wait a minute, you're not my listing agent. So you've got to respect also the house that you're in, and that goes a long ways. But yeah, the opportunity is really just wowing them from that initial conversation. And it should be in person. If you can track down that listing agent, it should be in person. Go find them, make them cookies or write them a card, tell them how you're going to work above and beyond like no other open house agent, and do those things and do it.
Jesse, I'm going to give a little bit more nuggets because this is the opportunity conversation, you guys. This is finding business, because open houses can lead to buyers and they can lead to more listings, right? And top agents like Jesse are happy to support agents who are coming in and getting those leads. So a couple of things. Number one, if you're approaching a top agent or a listing agent like that, remember, treat the agent like a client. They are your client. How would you service a client? That top agent wants to be serviced and communicated in that same way, right? Number two, what they keep saying over and over, we hear Jake say it, we heard Jesse say it, we heard Aubrey say it, right? An open house isn't just an open house. You need to have a strategy around your open house. What does the entire picture look like? And what strategies are you implementing to make it a successful open house to represent the house, but also to generate those much needed leads, which may include door knocking or mailers or signage. And number three, Jesse, I love the idea of cookies. I never got any cookies, but I love that idea. Here's one more thing. If you have given an exceptional experience to an agent that you held an open house for, ask the agent to write you a review. And when you go and approach another agent to get for the opportunity to do their open house, you can say, here's the 5 agents I've held open houses for and what they had to say about me representing the house.
Love it.
Cool. All right, you guys, we are wrapping up our 45-minute time today. This was so awesome. Jesse, where are you physically, geographically located, just so that we got people from across the state of Oregon on the call. If they have more questions or possibly have a referral for your area, when, how, and where can they find you?
Sunset Quarter Market Center, and our team covers from Forest Grove, St. Helens to Troutdale to North Portland to Woodburn. So pretty much the whole Portland metro area, we have people that can help you. I live in Southwest Portland. I grew up in Hillsborough. So yeah, and thank you for having me on today. It's an amazing opportunity. And if you guys need anything at all, feel free to reach out anytime.
Jesse, would you mind putting your email and your cell phone number in that chat box?
You bet.
Also, you guys, once again, this call was recorded. If you want to go back and share this with other people in your market center, other agents that have questions, or just re-review this information, make sure that you log on to, it will be posted by tomorrow, and you can find it at kwtechhelp.com. I'm putting that in the box right now as well. Thank you all for joining us for a powerful Momentum Mastermind. We look forward to seeing you next month. Have a great day, you guys.
You guys, thank you.